Welcome to the Superposition podcast, a podcast where the stories of members of the security community talk about life in the post-quantum cryptography world. We hit on a range of topics, such as penetration testing, new quantum threats, and emergent quantum encryption standards. We frame these problems through personal stories, and we hope to encourage you to get more involved in this emergent field. This podcast is sponsored by the QuForce, which has the mission to be the world's leading community for post-quantum cryptography and white hat hacking. Join our community today at QuForce.org. That is QuForce.org. Let's get started. Welcome everyone back to the Superposition podcast. We're here with our first guest. Rebecca, do you want to give a short intro of our first guest?
I will. So this guy over here who keeps fading in and out, this guy is my fake big brother, Konstantin Vilk. He's a brilliant cybersecurity leader, CISO, CIO, currently the CTO of QuSecure. And we are lucky to have this guy here to explain to us some of the nuances around what this post-quantum cybersecurity world looks like.
Thank you very much. I also keep the chair warm like a champion.
Well, you're also where I'm at physically. It's kind of weird. You're superimposed on my in my environment. So
that's right. It's all about entanglement and superposition.
So yeah, Kessa, how would you describe where we're at with post-quantum cryptography? Like what got you scared and excited at the same time in the space?
Sure. So my choice to enter the quantum work stream was really about how we were protecting data in financial services and in other industries. So I spent the last decade as a CTO or a CISO in financial services, and what became abundantly clear to me is that we never really look at cryptography and how we truly protect data in depth. No one really understands it well enough, and with the predominance of all of the latest attacks, successful attacks especially, it became abundantly clear that that level of data protection and cryptographic protection really needed to improve. And not only the methods around it, but also the algorithms. So it was very exciting to see that NIST was looking to standardize on new quantum Brazilian cryptography. Mm-hmm. And I decided that it has to be our task to take it to the market, because though that level of cryptography is much more complex than anything we've dealt with in the past. And it's going to be very difficult to bring it to the industry in a scalable, digestible fashion. So that's what excited me about this work.
Well, I feel like you have seen a lot of threats in your lifetime as a CISO and in various roles. Do you think that we're ready for this threat? Like without having these standards even enforced or in place yet, and they're evolving. Like how do we prepare? Like how do we best prepare?
Sure. So that's two questions. So first, I'll tackle the are we ready for this threat? And the answer is a very adamant no. We're not ready as an industry, and we're not ready as individual consumers either. What we're seeing right now is state-sponsored attacks that are becoming extremely complex and super successful, and there is definitely an environment where it just becomes more interesting for the attackers to continue to attack, and it's more lucrative for them as well. In state-sponsored attacks, they're able to get information that's vital to us, both at the nation level, but also at the industry level, and of course at financially motivated attacks. They are learning and evolving just as much as we are in the industry are evolving and learning as well. So it becomes a very asynchronous type of warfare because we're not quite as well resourced as the um, as the attackers are.
Mhm.
Now, having said all of that, we are both as an industry, our company at QSecure, we're all working to bring better communications, more secure communications, more resilient ways of protecting data and assets to the forefront. And that's going to start hitting the market from us and our various partners and other contributors over the next couple of years. So we are we're at the very forefront of trying to make our internet safer again.
Now, so quantum computers, it's a little bit unclear when they're going to hit this capacity to break RSA, to really destroy everything that we hold dear in cybersecurity right now. Yeah, I just saw an email come through from Skip, another one of the co-founders of QuForce, that Goldman Sachs is estimating we've got 5 years. We don't know. So why, maybe you can talk a little bit about SNDL and why we should be caring right this moment about post-quantum cybersecurity versus waiting until this is really sort of hit the fan, so to speak.
Yes, of course. So any data that we've lost recently has its own life cycle. That life cycle, depending on the industry and the importance or criticality of that data, it can be valid for anywhere from 5, 10, 25, 50, or even 75 years. If you're in the intelligence community or military community, or it could be even longer than that, because our personally identifiable information, if a newborn's social security number is leaked, that stays with them their entire life. Now, a quantum computer that comes online in 5 years from now, that machine can go there and start breaking down the cryptography within that life cycle. So your 25-year life cycle of financial transactions, for example, and your account numbers and other personally identifiable information now is under threat within the next 5 to 10 years. So anything that we can protect yesterday is better than protecting it tomorrow, because by that time it may already be too late.
So you're saying that if I haven't changed my online banking password in, say, 10 years, one, I should probably do that.
Mm-hmm.
And two, that data, if it's stolen now, decrypted later, it may still, like, there's a shelf life to this data.
Yeah, or even beyond your password, just think about your account number.
Right.
That's a very important piece of information, along with your address, name, and other facts. What you change today is going to help you stay ahead of the attacker tomorrow.
That's fair. And I think, Jim, you like to focus on people's stories and journeys. Why don't we take a step back and Kosta, talk about how you ended up in this crazy space?
Oh, that's an interesting one. So, as a CISO in financial services, I get a phone call from a friend of mine, and he asks me, do you know of anyone who is really at the forefront of developing new methodologies, understanding how cybersecurity applies in real world scenarios, and what the threats, and who really can understand quantum computing and quantum cryptography? To which my response was, okay, Dave, what do you have in mind?
The joke being Dave is also one of the co-founders of QuForce and QuSecure.
Exactly. So that was how it all started.
Here we are.
Yeah, now you both have merged into one person.
Yeah, they're in superposition.
Yes.
They even have the same car now.
Oh yes, that's true. But mine is shinier.
It's new.
No, I think let's transition. So I think Kosta, you're leading up the standards task force in the QuForce. Do you want to tell the community a little bit more about what is the standards task force? What do you envision or the goals for it?
Yeah, absolutely. So as we're developing new methods to implement quantum resilient cryptography in our real world applications, in our daily applications, the most important aspect of it is that it needs to be adopted and accepted by the industry at large. Now, we are working with existing governing bodies around it, but what we're seeing is that the focus is very much on each specific individual application within it. Where we are not making any traction as an industry is how to really standardize on these new technologies and really understand them at a much deeper level from the standpoint of how do they impact everything around them. When you communicate, it's not a one-way communication ever, and it's never and because of that, we need to ensure that we can see all of the impacts of all of the moving pieces that make up a whole of what we describe as secure communication. So because of that, we're developing a task force at QuForce to really look at standards ubiquitously and how do they work together, how do they work as part of the general communication system. And we're going to be developing new standardization processes, procedures, and methodologies to really help move industry forward. This is something that we see as our contribution to make our communications a bit safer, a bit better, a bit more resilient, and take us into the next generation.
Yeah, and along those lines, I think I mentioned a lot of times that you're looking to get these industry consortiums together. How critical do you think it is to have industry consortiums to drive new standards and new approaches to enforce these standards? Like larger companies coming together. I often think of it in the voice computing community where you have a data set, like, and all the pharma companies see this is a new endpoint for a clinical trial with voice computing or voice biomarkers for disease diagnosis. When you get like 7 or 10 pharma companies together to agree on one endpoint, it might drive that forward. I'm curious your thoughts here around data set in post-quantum cryptography. Which data sets should we go after and what consortium should we put together?
Yeah, absolutely. So, no one really succeeds on their own. We all succeed because we're a part of something larger. We succeed because there are people there to help us. There are people to contribute. There are people to lift us up and support us. And the same goes with technology as well. As we engage in a larger community, we can have input from everyone and really understand their use cases. How do they digest that information? How do they use it? How do we aggregate that data? How do we compile it, slice and dice it to make it usable and useful for us, to contextualize it? So all of these different data points will really help us create a more uniform way of not only looking at things, but also be able to understand what the potential uses are both today and how it could be used in the future. And beyond what we've already been able to think of, far beyond what we've been able to think of so far. So very exciting stuff. I would love to have more voices here and more thoughts, more opinions, and just build on it.
Yeah, let's do it. I think anyone who is an industry leader out there that wants to be a part of this consortium, let's come together, and establish these standards, establish these procedures. It's a collaborative thing. We need to get everyone in the room to discuss this and move it forward. Otherwise, you're just going to get a lot of fragmentation, and it's going to be really, really hard. And I think I've seen both sides of that in many areas, and it's much better coming together and have consensus than disunity.
Mhm.
I couldn't agree with you more.
So Costa,
Yes.
question for you. What would you say to first somebody who has no experience in the space, who wants to get involved? Second, to a total cybersecurity veteran, and then third, to a business leader in the space? How would you give each of these people advice on how to start dipping their toe into this world?
Yeah, thank you for asking me that one. That's actually a very tough question.
Yes. It's not an easy one for
That's not-
5:30
Yeah, that's
PM
not up at the end of the
on a-
day. Thanks for that.
on a Thursday.
All of these jokes aside, so let's start with a beginner.
Mhm.
Beginners have no preconceptions. They don't understand what could go wrong because they haven't experienced it yet. And their fresh perspective unaltered by negative experiences really help create and generate ideas. Actually, even at QSecure, where we're developing the standards, some of these and products, I should say, some of the best ideas actually came from the most junior members of our team because they have a fresh perspective, a fresh look.
A college intern, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, a college intern.
Yeah.
So
He was a physics major, not even a computer science major.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, my background is not in computer sciences
That's
either,
fair.
but
Yeah.
we'll skip past that. So yes, everyone's opinions are valid and needed. More senior members, they know how to navigate, and they know how to make snap decisions because they've experienced it. They've hit walls, they've hit roadblocks, and and they know how to navigate and get around hurdles in a way that younger people do not, because they just don't have that experience. They haven't run headfirst into a wall.
Yeah. So while you're there, what was
Yeah.
your most painful experience as a CISO ever that you reacted in a snap decision that you did take that like a step further that you can
Battle story.
disclose publicly?
Oh, I have so many battle stories, but as you can see right here, I have no gray hair. I don't know why, but as a CISO, I think I've been able to sleep well. I must have done something right. but snap decisions are things that you learn with experience. So what I tend to do is I look for the most likely cause, most likely outcome, and that's just experience driven. So when experience teaches you that if something looks wrong, it is definitely wrong. You don't need to think about it. You just need to figure out why it's wrong and how to address it the right way and quickly. So it gives you that extra boost in time that you need to react quickly.
Yeah.
Are you talking about? Go ahead, Rebecca. Sorry.
And the business leader, of course. How should they get involved?
Oh, business leaders, they drive everything. So this is where it gets interesting. One of the biggest problems for a typical CISO or a CTO is how to get the right buy-in, how to really enroll governance, how to get the leadership to empower them to be able to make the right decisions, and how to support them in that. This is where we really need those senior leaders, because without their understanding of where we need to go, we as senior leaders in the cybersecurity area really struggle to make a point, get a point across, articulate the problem, articulate the response to that problem, and the timing there. So that kind of governance is critical, and we really need senior people to come together with us to continue moving the industry forward, because this is about moving the industry forward.
And of course, there's a place for every one of those groups at QuForce, right?
Exactly, and yeah, you'll get acknowledgement, and you'll get to know that you're really doing something to contribute to better, safer internet. This is something that we're doing for future generations as well, not just ourselves.
Yeah, this is super exciting. This quantum internet that we're going to be in with quantum computers online, with encryption standards there. Fast forward in 5 years, imagine the quantum internet is there. What do you think in a post-quantum world are going to be beyond even encryption and security, some things that you're excited about in quantum in general? I mean, this is just, I'm bringing this up because if you can secure things, naturally there's going to be new applications, new things. Just curious your thoughts on where this is going as a field outside of security as well.
Okay, so honestly, what I'm really excited about with quantum computing is its promise to deliver new materials, new sciences, new discoveries, um, things that we haven't been able to overcome with our classical models. We just don't have enough computing power. And I'm very excited by the possibilities of how we can continue to evolve and improve our lives with it.
There's a great quote about how moving to like quantum chemistry simulations with quantum computers is going to be for us what moving from alchemy to chemistry was like in the past. It's kind of this shift that's going to happen. The other side of the risk of quantum computers, right?
Yeah, and we're right there at its inception, which makes it just so much more thrilling. Now, I'm hoping to see faster, better communications, being able to aggregate more data in usable ways and useful ways, something that can make the world a little bit safer, or have better information for us, a little bit more digestible. Maybe even be able to separate the wheat from the chaff, so to speak.
Well, I'm excited about all that, but I'm even more excited in beaming signals into Mars and encrypting data to Mars, thinking about quantum repeaters, thinking about how to encrypt data in transit through hitting the moon and then hitting a station halfway to Mars, and making sure each of those nodes are safe. And I think this new area of space travel and getting into space is creating this whole new need for end-to-end encryption that we haven't even thought of, and the implications there are profound. And I'm in constant awe of the pace we're making, just getting into space and everything there, from satellites to spacecraft to hitting the moon. I mean, I'm an amateur radio operator. I like to hit the moon sometimes with amateur radio waves. So I don't know. I'm with you, man. There's so many applications. And then I'm an engineer, bioengineer by training. So I see the drug molecular chemistry that you can do, and how you can simulate quantum computers, the actual notion of a cell, and all the ways to do simulations non-linearly. It's remarkable if you do repurpose drugs for cancer and rare disease, especially. It's the amount of suffering you can maybe solve by starting with more power, computation power, is with deep learning, quantum computing. It's amazing. So yeah.
Totally. We talk about a lot what quantum machine learning is going to mean for cybersecurity and for understanding the landscape of these threats. And so it's not exclusively the cryptography and the communications, but there's kind of this whole emerging world that quantum brings on in this space and beyond.
Yeah, absolutely, and it is very exciting stuff. I mean, I think it was Orson Scott Card who wrote so many decades ago about faster than light communication. I think he called it Ansible in his books. And just to be able to communicate across large distances like that, across the universe, is just so incredibly exciting. And we're actually working on secure communications for satellites and large commercial applications. So this is very much in line with what we do. It's very exciting to be working on that tech.
Yeah, man, we live in the future.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like quantum encapsulation of D-star waves into space would be really fun. I don't know if you've ever heard D-Star, but it's like a lot of beeps and sounds over amateur radio, and on the other side, it decrypts a signal, and it's like these random sounds. They're just like complete randomness, and the other side decrypts it, and it's like this encrypted language of beeps. It sounds like just crazy noise, and I feel like it'd be really fun encrypting that on top of that with
Yeah.
other techniques.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
It would be. Well, I have some friends at SETI. Maybe we can work with them on it. It will be fun.
Yeah. Well, yeah, this is sort of the stuff we're talking about in this community. Let's get involved. Let's get new ideas, new thinking, as well as established thinking. Let's get you involved in this task force. The standards task force seems like a great first step to advance this industry forward with new minds and also new data sets, new definitional standards that align with NIST and aren't totally disruptive. I think we're very thoughtful here about aligning with what's already been done. And I think, yeah, we're really excited to engage you guys.
Kosta, do you have any messages for new members or potential new members?
Yeah, I actually do. So, Jim, it's as you mentioned. We are trying to make it useful for everyday use, both in the enterprise, government, and in the private sector. So we do follow the standards very closely, not only try to create them. And so together, I think we can really make a huge impact to what we do, how we do it overall.
Awesome.
Well, cool. Well, take care, everyone, and welcome again to the Superposition podcast. We're really excited to have you here. We're going to have many more guests like this in the coming weeks, starting with a few core team members, and hopefully you find these conversations enlightening. Please subscribe to this channel, like us on Facebook and Twitter and all the social channels. We'll post them in the link below. And sign up to the QuForce, qforce.org. You can sign up to Slack. All of our communication is done over email and Slack, and we'll plug you into this task force if you want to be involved. And if you have any feedback on this podcast or guests that you want to hear, let us know. We're around to listen. So please comment and let us know. We'll take all positive and negative feedback into account.
Well, thank you, Kosta.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jim. And we'll see you next time.